Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. जी तो my dear students, we were discussing about writing of thesis. In that we were particularly discussing about chapter number 1. In that chapter we talked about writing an abstract of thesis, topic of thesis, introduction, literature review, key concepts, research gap, and lastly we were discussing about the research methodology in our last lecture. And in that we talked about the types of research: qualitative, quantitative, experimental, and doctrinal research. In this section you will have to describe that what type of research you are selecting while conducting this research in your thesis. After that you will have to discuss that what data collection tools you are going to use in this regard. This will depend upon the type of research which you have selected. As I already talked about it in my previous lecture, that if you are selecting quantitative research, then the data collection will be mainly by the help of questionnaires, surveys. If you are going for the qualitative research, then you will be collecting your data by observations, interviews, etc. And particularly in case of doctrinal research, if you are doing your research by doctrinal method, your data collection will be mainly generated through the research articles, journal articles, online papers, conference papers, judgments of the courts, judgments of the national courts, international courts like International Court of Justice, lower courts. Then your data will come from the statutory law, the acts, the ordinances, the rules. Alternatively, you can also use international bodies like World Bank, IMF, WTO, their reports, their panel reports. You can use online resources, you can use books, dictionaries, and you can use documents, all type of documents. It includes public documents, private documents, and apart from that, yes, the literature which I already discussed. You can, so basically your data will be coming from all these sources. After data collection, the very next step which you will be required to discuss in your research methodology section of your chapter 1 is you need to tell your reader that how you are going to analyze this data. Okay, you have collected, you have justified that your data will come through these sources, but how this will be analyzed? You need to talk about, you need to write about this in your chapter 1 in research methodology section. So if you are selecting questionnaire, you can say that you will be using softwares, statistical softwares, which you will analyze the statistics, the number games with the help of different softwares like SPSS. In case of qualitative research, if you are conducting interviews or your data is generating by the observation, you can say that this will be analyzed by using NVivo software. So now the question in hand, that what data analysis techniques would be utilized in case of doctrinal research. So yes, we can say that in case of judgments, if the data is coming from judgment, we can segregate it in two parts. There are always two parts of a judgment. Number one is the ratio descendi, and number two the obiter dicta. I'm sure you must have read about it in jurisprudence subject of your degree. Obiter dicta is basically the general discussion, the general debate of the court, of the judge, around the surrounding questions involved in the case which are not directly related to the fact in issue or relevant fact. For example, if the parties are taking the plea of lack of jurisdiction, limitation of the case, then findings of the court upon these matters, that whether the jurisdiction is erroneous or it is legitimate, whether the case is time barred or not, this will purely come in the obiter dictum part of the judgment. So basically that part of the judgment which is decisive, which is having binding force on the lower courts, or which is making a rule, or which is necessarily talking about the fact and issue involved in this case, which is you can say that it is not only deciding the facts but it is also interpreting the law. So that part of the judgment is basically ratio decidendi, which is having binding force upon the other courts. So while analyzing a judgment of Supreme Court of Pakistan or any court, you will segregate that judgment in two parts, the obiter dictum and ratio decidendi. In this case, mostly we don't have to do anything with the obiter dictum of the judgment. We will be particularly looking for the ratio decidendi, the operative part of the judgment, which is interpreting the law. We would be extracting the ratio decidendi of the judgment from that judgment, which is consisting like 500 paragraphs. From those 500 paragraphs, we need to find out those 5 to 10 or 15 paragraphs which are explaining, interpreting, elaborating the law, the application of the law. So we will extract those paragraphs, we will paraphrase them, we will comprehend them, then we will summarize those paragraphs in our thesis, and then we will discuss that, we will support those arguments, we will criticize those arguments, or whatever sides we want to take, we will take that. Okay, so this is the scheme how to analyze, how to describe a judgment. So this the ratio decidendi part, I'm giving you a clue how to find a. Normally, a judgment starts with the parties' names, the title of the case, the laws involved in that case. Then it starts stating facts of the case, then the applicable law, then the arguments of the parties start, and then the judgment of the court starts. And the judgment also starts from the preliminary issues which have been pointed out, pinpoint by the parties. So you will skip all those things while going in the last parts of the judgments, the last paragraphs of the judgment. Like if it is consisting of 100 paragraphs, you will find ratio decidendi in paragraphs starting from paragraph number 80 to 90 or 95. And then the judgment will be concluded in last 5, 4, 6 paragraphs. So you need to extract that ratio decidendi and you need to apply that. उसके बाद जी ये तो this is how we will analyze, how we will use judgment in our thesis. After that, if you talk about the statutory laws, the acts, the ordinances, the rules, the regulations, the treaties, international treaties, how to analyze those laws, those statutes. So we already know that there is a principle of golden literal and mischief rule of interpretation, which talk about the fact that if the legislation is clear and it is exactly applying to the existing facts of the case, then and there is no ambiguity, there is no absurdity, there is no confusion. This is certainly this is clear. This is certainly it is applying to the existing facts of the case. Then you need to go for the literal interpretation of the statute. You cannot extract the meaning according to your own wish from that article, that section. Instead, you are bound to understand, comprehend, and utilize the literal meaning of the statute. This is the literal rule of interpretation of statutory laws. Number two, sometimes the scenario is that the wording of the legislation, the article, the section, the rule is clear, but as a matter of fact, it is not accurately applying to the existing facts of the case. I mean to say that the ground realities are different, but the statute, the text of the statute, the text of section is different. It is not accurately applying to the existing facts. It means that there is a confusion, there is absurdity, there is lack of clarity. In that case, you can leave the literal meaning of the law and you can go for the logic of the parliament, of the legislator, of the lawmaking body. You need to look into the rationale, the logic, the reasoning of making that law. While understanding that logic, that reasoning, you need to interpret that section or that article. So this is clear that if the language of the law, if the language of the statute is causing absurdity, if it is causing lack of clarity, then you can extract the rational meaning of the statute. For example, there is an agreement, there is a contract between two parties, and they state in their contract that, okay, I'm going to sell you my plot located in Karachi in this price, blah blah blah. But look, now the language of this contract is clear. He is going to sell his 10 marla plot which is situated in Karachi. The price is clear, everything is clear. But as a matter of fact, this is not accurately applying to the existing facts. So what is the fact? The fact is that the seller actually doesn't have any plot in Karachi. Actually, he got a plot in Kalachi instead of Karachi, which is now also a part of Karachi, but if we talk about like 1850s, like 1950s, Karachi was a different thing apart from Karachi, but now both are, I think, in Karachi and Karachi, same thing. So the language is clear, but the actual facts are different. It is not actually applying to the existing facts. Similarly, if a contract is talking about Hyderabad, but it is not actually stating which Hyderabad, the Hyderabad located in Pakistan or India, then the evidence can be given to prove that which Hyderabad it was meant to say. So if the language of the document, if the statute is not clear, you can use the logical reasoning, you can use the logical meaning of that section, that article, to extract the rationale and logic of that law. So far, in case of statutes, you will be using golden, literal, and mischief rule. All these things you need to mention in your data analysis section of your research methodology. After that, you need to tell the reader that how you will analyze the reports, the literature, the books, the opinions of jurists, the opinions of researchers, the scholars, expressed in the form of research articles, online articles, conference papers. So you can say that I will be doing content analysis, I will be doing discourse analysis, I will be extracting the central part of the debate while leaving apart the overall presumptions of the author, of the scholar. So you can say that you will be, or you can say that I will be using discourse analysis. I will be extracting the reasoning, the logical reasoning of the author. I will be interpreting his mind, the actual meaning behind the text, behind the words, and I will be contradicting and corroborating the statements, the arguments of different researchers. I will be extracting different themes from that literature. there can be 2 to 3 groups of researchers, scholars, which may have taken different sides on the same subject. For example, if we are talking about the application of competition law in Pakistan, we may get 20 research papers, and after reading that, after reviewing that, we may find that there are 3 groups of researchers who are holding 3 different opinions on some same subject matter. So there are 3 main opinion groups on that subject. So you can say that my analysis will involve the corroboration and contradiction of the opinions of researchers, and while discussing their contradictions and their corroboration, their agreements and disagreements, I will be stating my own opinion in that regard. तो इस तरह से you need to discuss the data analysis techniques you are going to use in your thesis. You need to make the reader clear that what is your research, what type of research you are going to use in this research, what are your data collection tools, what are your data analysis tools. Apart from that, you also need to justify your selection of data collection tools, data analysis tools, and research type. As I said earlier, that you will have to tell your reader, and not only tell, you will have to convince your reader that, look, this is the matter in hand, this is the question in hand, these are the available research techniques, these are the available data collection tools, these are the available data analysis tools, and for answering this research question or this part of research question, these are the best possible available tools to answer this question. I mean to say, the results which will be extracted by using this research type, this data collection tool, this data analysis tool, that would be most reliable, most authentic tool, and the productivity and the originality and the reliability of the research, the results which will come through this research, that will be dependable, that will be trustful, and that can be used as evidence for the purpose of future research by the other researchers. So that's it for the today's lecture. Thank you very much, guys.